listen to reason? Will you open your eyes?
In California.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing well. Well, I have something that I want to talk about, but really quickly on the second coming. Again, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I think when you take kind of verses out of context, that you can tend to skew them a little bit. So I think there's a little bit of that in there, but there's no time for that. So I'm just going to ask my question. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Sure.
but is there some particular context you had in mind that makes those sound better?
Well, I'd have to call back next week after doing my research. I don't want to speak off the head because, I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Unlike some of the callers who call into your show. So.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Go on with your question then.
Okay. Last week, I believe it was Mark. He used an analogy. A caller called in about how if you reject the existence of God, then that's like accepting, our universe in which God doesn't exist. And he said, no, that's not true. And the evidence he used was a trial in which, you're either guilty or not guilty. And so just because you say they're not guilty doesn't mean they're innocent. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, generally the point is that the prosecution has to often prove things beyond a shadow of a doubt, whereas the defense just has to have enough doubt that there's not a good reason to convict.
Okay. I mean, the thing about it is the reason why that's not really a full picture of kind of when you're speculating on the origin of the universe is because there are really only two things that could be implicated here. And so what we're saying, what atheists are basically saying, it's really they reject the belief that there is a God.
Why
And
two?
So, right? Correct?
Why two?
Why two? Well, okay, I can explain. All right, so let's in thinking about the universe, right? So we see things, we can observe things, things exist. So that's something that we know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now going back to the beginning, either everything came from nothing, correct, or something came from nothing and then made everything, or something has always existed, persistent existence, correct?
There's an idea in physics that time started when the universe began, and there was no notion of before. So I really kind of I don't think we even know enough to say we know what the possibilities are.
Right.
Well,
I mean, there are a lot of.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean there are a whole lot of different ways to speculate about the origin of the universe. I mean, there could be multiple universes. There could be what Don said, that the concept of before is really kind of meaningless. There are a variety of questions, but presumably the one that you've hitched your wagon to is that there's an omnipotent being who made everything on purpose.
Well, let's revisit kind of what you're saying. What you were saying about there's many options.
Okay.
All those options would boil down really to either nothing has existed previously, and then something came from nothing. So there was previously nothing, not energy, not matter, not anything, and everything came from that. Or there's persistent existence, either the oscillating universe, which has always been there, just going through various stages of whatever the bulk was doing, or whatever however many big bangs and dimensions and universes were happening, right? Or that there was a supernatural being who was always there.
Where did the supernatural injection come in as a different thing? I mean, presumably you're going to say that thing existed forever, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
So isn't that just the same as one of your other options?
That's called special pleading, by the way. That's a logical fallacy of you say, well, nothing can exist without having been created, but this God I invented has that property.
No. I'm not saying nothing can exist without ever being created. I will submit to you that it is a possibility that there is an oscillating universe in which it's going through various stages of banging and collapsing. But then either way, either something there's persistent existence, right, where either matter and energy have always existed or in some sort of state, nature, or the universe has always existed.
What we're really doing is we're arguing a lot of points about physics. Let's say I don't know. Let's say I don't know how the universe began. Is it my responsibility to come up with that so that I come up with an answer so that you know I can disprove a God? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But then, okay, now that we're there, I can continue with my analogy.
All right.
So we have a courtroom, right, where, you know, someone is either guilty or not guilty. But what we really have is a situation in which there are, I guess you could say, two guilty parties. You know,
well, we're judging a particular question, right? Was there a God that created the universe? I think is
no.
the question.
We're judging the particular question of what has persistent existence. Because unless you believe that nothing, you know, everything came from nothing or from non-existence, then we can, I think, agree that there has been persistent existence. That there was never nothing because there is something now, and if there was nothing, there would be nothing to cause.
I don't
agree with that.
think we can assume that. How do you jump to that conclusion?
Okay.
Physicists think
we can talk about. I mean, we can kind of logically think about this. You don't want to assume that nothing can come from, that something can't come from nothing. That's something you would rather not assume, correct?
I don't want to assume anything because I don't want to make up things that I don't know without evidence.
What do you mean by nothing exactly? Do you mean a vacuum?
No, not a vacuum, because a vacuum can have energy. Something, not energy, not matter, nothing.
Okay.
Like literally nothing.
Well,
do you agree that nothing has never existed? Like literally nothing?
No, I just said I don't think we can assume that.
Okay.
We don't know, I think, is the answer. We don't know is the answer.
Right.
Well, the thing is, I think we can logically speculate from what we know of the, because that's what we're using, and that's what evidence is our observations of the natural world, etc.
Right. So we don't have any evidence that there is this nothing that you talk about, but you want to sort of insert it before the universe.
No, he wants to say there definitely was never nothing. I mean, there was always something, is what he's wanting to say. And I'm saying I don't think we can make the assumption either way because we don't know what happened before the Big Bang.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Okay. I'll give you that. We'll let you kind of believe. I mean, I'll allow you to think that something can come from nothing. Although, if you cannot explain how that could be, then that in and of itself is a very poor. It's almost like saying that there was a split.
Well, then explain where your God came from. Then,
if I didn't know the cause of lightning, and you told me that God created lightning, would God exist?
That doesn't apply to this question because I'm not saying
it's the same thing. It's an analogous argument.
Okay, how is it analogous to something coming from nothing? Because we understand what something is. We understand that
lightning was very mysterious for many, many years. Maybe it's mysterious to me.
Yeah, it used to be the case that people didn't know where lightning came from, and so they made up like Zeus sitting on Mount Olympus throwing lightning that he forged at his. I mean, I don't know the details of that one, but
then Christians had a problem because they built their churches on hills and got
right,
a lot of lightning bolts along the way.
So I mean, it's very tempting when you don't know the answer to a thing to just make up a magic man who explains everything and does not himself need any explanation.
I'm not trying to make up a magic man. Well, let's go on from there. So let's say, okay, it's possible that everything came from nothing. Let's say it's possible, but it's more likely that the universe has had persistent existence, which is why scientists are speculating.
How do you know that?
Before the Big Bang, there's a bulk in existence. Because I mean, this is just, it's one of those things where it's like, if there's literally nothing, then for something to come into being, it would have to have pre-existence before itself. Because
your argument assumes there's a time before the beginning of the universe, which I think is false according to the current thinking of physics.
The current thinking of physics is speculating on what could have caused the Big Bang.
Yes.
So, a collapsing, an expanding and collapsing universe.
That's not assumed by physics, no.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
That's not assumed by physics. That's just one of many hypotheses about where the universe might have come from.
This is true. It's one of many hypotheses. But otherwise, why wouldn't they just say, you know what, before the Big Bang there was nothing, and then
we could
just speculate.
Because the concept of before doesn't make sense here.
Right.
And I think that's the flaw in your argument. Is okay. So today I'm going to champion this view of physics, that there was no time before the beginning of the universe. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say that that's the physicist's final answer, which I'll admit right now it isn't. It isn't. But
Okay.
it's a coherent statement from physicists that are consistent with the facts today, and may be proven wrong in the future. But let's go with that. Then in that case, if you go with that, then the whole idea of the time before the universe is a nonsensical concept. It doesn't make sense.
I see. So time began with the universe.
Yes.
And then the universe doesn't have a cause.
Yes.
Okay. So the universe is an uncaused.
Like he said, that's
that's to my understanding of this physics. I'm not a physicist.
And if you're saying that if the place you're going is that you think there has to be an uncaused cause, you have to first demonstrate that the universe is not that thing, or you have to demonstrate.
Exactly.
What?
No, I'm not saying the universe can't be that thing. I think that I think the universe can. It's possible.
Okay.
Based on the evidence that the universe can be the uncaused cause. What I'm saying
So that's
is that
one
there
possibility.
must be an uncaused cause, as opposed to something that was caused that was uncaused because there was nothing to cause.
Well,
it,
at the quantum level of our reality at those small scales, there are uncaused causes, right? There's things like nuclear decay in atoms, right? For uranium or whatever. These are uncaused causes that happen. We can measure them statistically, but we can't know when they're going to occur. So there are these spontaneous things that happen, and we know about that from quantum physics.
And I think one of the things that Lawrence Krauss says that's interesting is that interactions where equal numbers of particles and antiparticles are just coming into existence all the time. I mean, they cancel each other out, so they're still essentially zero stuff.
Yeah, this is called zero-point energy.
Right.
Right.
Okay, that means that it always existed then, that they were constantly coming in and out of existence as opposed to having not existed before,
but
and then
not,
all of a sudden a ton of them come out of nowhere.
But not in a way that's caused.
Not in a way that's caused. So something that wasn't before became without a cause. So it's something that would need a cause because it wasn't there before. Like not before, but it didn't. It's like if something occurred, it needs a cause. You understand? Unless it's an uncaused cause, which is what you're saying.
So this whole first cause argument that I think you're trying to go around or treading on the path of is been made false by quantum mechanics or quantum physics. Right? There are uncaused causes.
When you say it's made false, what you mean is it doesn't necessarily lead to a God. There's nothing in there that indicates that some kind of intelligence is involved in those original.
I agree. I agree. I'm not trying to prove that God exists. What I'm trying to say is we don't know. This is exactly what I want, actually, because what we're saying is we don't know. All right.
Well, we could have told you that at the beginning.
Exactly.
We don't see any evidence for this thing, so why should we believe it? We don't see any evidence for a God, so why should we believe it?
Okay, I understand, but what is the evidence for a perpetual universe or a universe that could come without a cause? What is the evidence for that?
There's not sufficient evidence to conclusively demonstrate that any of the possibilities is a reality. And when you say that God is just, God or not God is the choice, that's like saying, my choices for dinner are scrambled eggs or not scrambled eggs. It's like scrambled eggs is one possibility, and you could say that it's a genuine dichotomy where you either have scrambled eggs or you don't. But that doesn't really capture all the thousands of options that I actually have when I choose what to eat for dinner.
It does capture. It is completely and 100% descriptive. You can't have not eggs and not eggs, right? Correct. You can't. It's impossible.
I guess
right?
if you're making a logical argument,
okay, if you want to be pedantic about it.
Yeah.
That's
logic. With
right,
regard to belief, there's always a third option that you just don't believe. You can believe one thing, you can believe another thing, or you can just not believe.
Right. It's like if you ask me, what did Louis XIV have for breakfast the morning he was killed? I could say, I don't know, but I don't think it was scrambled eggs. I might have a good reason to say I don't think it was scrambled eggs, but that doesn't mean that I'm stating definitely what it was.
I agreed. So then we agree that you could say King Louis, you know, we believe he didn't have scrambled eggs. We don't know what he had. But I believe, for whatever reason, because I have no evidence for what he did have, right? Okay. And I have no evidence that he necessarily did not have scrambled eggs. Why is that? Why is there a default claim in that? Is what I'm saying. Why would him not having scrambled eggs be the default, and then everyone would have to prove that he did have scrambled eggs if that wanted to be the case?
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of claim you're making. Because if you're coming in here and saying, I know that King Louis XIV had scrambled eggs that morning, I could just say,
That's a positive claim.
You know, why do you think that? And if you said, I don't know, I just feel it, then I could say, I don't believe you. That doesn't mean I know that Louis XIV didn't have scrambled eggs, but it does mean that I don't think that that I continue to withhold judgment because I don't think that you have a good reason to think that that he had scrambled eggs.
Okay,
which is the same thing. Which is really the same thing that we say about God, which is that's a possibility, but the certainty that is usually presented when people talk about God isn't warranted by the things they actually know.
That it makes a lot. That's exactly what I want, but that's not what atheism says. That's not what atheism
actually it is.
See, that's what, yeah, but then that's not what. If I look up atheism in a dictionary, that is not what it says. You call yourself an atheist. Okay. You have to call yourself something else.
Read me that dictionary definition, and we'll see if it says what you think.
Dictionary.com would that be okay?
All right, sure.
You can also look at our website.
Yeah, because you can define it. I mean, if you yourself define a word, like I can define a word however I want. But it's all about the generally what the general public believes a word is. That's general. I mean, that's how we define it.
Well, have you got the definition?
We're not particularly conformist.
Yeah, we're going to have to wrap this up soon. But if you can bring up the definition, then we can put a few minutes on that, and then we're going to move on.
Okay, sure, definitely. While I'm bringing it up, I just want to. The reason my reason for calling is that when some atheists, I'm saying you guys, continue to say that, oh, you know, we're all about empiric data, and you know, we don't believe anything without empiric data, to reject the claim, any claim about the origin of the universe, when you don't know, when there's no evidence for any of those claims, correct? Then you are essentially saying, you know, we believe this not to be true for really no reason at all, because there's no evidence for any of these either, you know?
No, we're saying we don't think that it's true. Give us a good reason, and then we'll modify the.
Well, let me see if I can answer this a different way. You know, there's thousands and thousands of gods out there, and we can't possibly know. There's no way that anybody can know that all of them are not there. But if you define a particular god, then we can have a conversation about what that particular god is. If in our culture, the ambient God definition is the Christian God, because we have a lot of Christians in this country, a lot of believers, and that's the God that people generally talk about. If you define something concretely, then you can make a concrete claim that yes, this thing exists, or no, it doesn't. Or in the case of like the problem of evil, you can say, well, if it's omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, if your God has these traits, then you point at the evil in the world and you say this God can't exist. This is a very old argument, right? So if you talk about a particular God, then we can have a conversation. But casting atheists as not believing in God is really or knowing that there is no God is really kind of a straw man as far as I'm concerned. It's a nonsensical claim, given that you can't prove any sort of universal negative. So I hope that clarifies it.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, we've got to get to other callers. Feel free to call in again.
Really quickly.
Okay.
Atheism, dictionary.com. Now, the doctrine or belief that there is no God, 1.
Okay.
2, disbelief in the existence of a supreme being or beings.
Right. Yay, so it's either of those, and disbelief just means that you don't have that belief.
Oh, I understand.
And that's what we generally go by.
Sure, go ahead.
And we make the distinction between strong and weak atheism on that, or positive atheism and
right.
Yeah. So yeah, there are shades of gray.
Okay. I mean, this is great. What I like you guys because you admit that you don't know. But then when people kind of hop into atheism mode, and all you believers are idiots, because there was no evidence that there is no God, when there was also no evidence that for whatever belief, whatever they believe, that it can extend to the fact that the universe has, has its own natural origin. There's no proof for that claim either.
We try not to believe false things. We try not to believe things without evidence. But,
and there are a lot of believers who aren't idiots. And, I mean, even there are a lot of atheists who are idiots.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I mean, we don't draw the dividing line there.
Yeah.
So thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.